The 1000 subscribers nobody expected. What would you do if you woke up one morning and discovered that your small YouTube channel had suddenly reached 1000 subscribers? Would you celebrate? Would you check the numbers again? Or would you ask the question that changed everything? Who were the first 1000 people who believed in a channel that almost nobody knew existed? Museva had started the channel with nothing. No expensive camera, no studio, no famous name, just a small idea, and a dream that most people would have laughed at. He wanted to tell stories. Stories about people who lost everything, people who were forgotten, people who made mistakes, and people who kept going when nobody believed in them. But after uploading his first video, something unexpected happened. Almost nobody watched it. The second video did even worse. The third video received only a few views. And then Museva noticed something strange. Every night, at exactly the same time, one person watched his videos. One view, always one view. Who was this person? Why did they watch every video? And why did they never leave a comment? For weeks, Museva continued creating videos. Sometimes he spent hours working on a story that only a few people watched. Sometimes he wanted to quit. But every night, that one mysterious view returned. Then, one morning, something happened. Museva opened his YouTube studio. He looked at the screen and froze. His subscriber count had changed. 999. He stared at the number. One more person, just one. But then a question appeared in his mind. Who would become subscriber number 1000? He refreshed the page. Nothing. He waited. A few minutes passed. Then suddenly, the number changed. 1000 subscribers. Museva smiled. But the celebration lasted only a few seconds. Because immediately after reaching 1000 subscribers, a message appeared in his inbox. And the message contained only one sentence. You finally made it. Now you need to know who your first subscriber really was. Museva stared at the screen. Who was the first person who believed in him? And why had that person been watching every video in silence? Before he could find the answer, another message arrived. Check the video you uploaded on your very first day. Museva opened the old video. And what he saw in the comments made his heart stop. Museva opened the very first video he had ever uploaded. It was an old video. The quality was not perfect. The audio was not perfect. And the story was not perfect either. But that video had started everything. He slowly scrolled down to the comments. There were only 3. The first comment said, "Keep going." The second said, "Someone is listening." And the third comment made Museva stop breathing. It said, "I know you don't realize it yet. But one day, 1000 people will be listening to you." Museva stared at the comment. There was no profile picture. No real name. Only a strange username. The first listener. But who was this person? And how could they have known that Museva would one day reach 1000 subscribers? The comment had been posted on the very first day, before the channel had even reached 10 subscribers. Museva clicked on the profile. The account had no videos, no description, no public information, but it had subscribed to his channel. The subscription date was the same day Museva uploaded his first video. That meant one thing. The mysterious person who had watched his videos every night may have been his very first subscriber. But why had they never spoken to him? Why had they watched every video silently? And how did they know that Museva would eventually reach 1000 subscribers? Museva checked the account again. This time, he noticed something he had never seen before. The account had created a playlist. There was only one video in it. Museva clicked on the playlist. The video began with a black screen. Then a voice started speaking. It was an older man's voice. And the first words immediately caught Museva's attention. Sometimes, the person who believes in you first is someone you will never meet. Museva sat completely still. The voice continued. I found this channel when it had almost nothing. No audience. No fame. Just one person trying to tell a story. I watched because I knew something that person didn't know yet. Museva leaned closer to the screen. What did this stranger know? The voice continued. Every creator believes they are creating for the audience. But sometimes, the audience is the reason the creator survives. Musaeva's eyes began to fill with tears. Then the voice said something that made his heart stop. I know you are going to reach 1,000 subscribers. But when you do, don't celebrate only the number. Remember the person who watched when nobody else did. The video suddenly ended. Musaeva looked at the screen. There was only one question in his mind now. Who was the man behind the voice? He searched everywhere, but the account had disappeared. The playlist was gone. The mysterious comment had vanished. Even the username had changed. It was as if someone had entered his channel, left him a message, and disappeared. Then Musaeva noticed something else. A new comment had appeared under his latest video. The username was different, but the message was familiar. It said, "You have 1,000 now." Musaeva's heart began beating faster. Then another line appeared, "But you still haven't found me." And below it was an address. An address in a city Musaeva had never visited. Why would a stranger leave an address? What was waiting there? And most importantly, why had this mysterious person chosen to reveal themselves only after the channel reached 1,000 subscribers? Musaeva had finally reached his dream. But now he realized something terrifying. The 1,000 subscribers may not have been the end of the journey. They may have been the beginning of the real story. Musaeva stared at the address on his screen. For several minutes, he didn't move. The address was hundreds of miles away. He had never been there. He didn't know anyone who lived there. So why had a stranger sent it to him? And what would happen if he actually went? There was only one way to find out. The next morning, Musaeva packed a small bag and started his journey. For hours, one question stayed in his mind. Who was the mysterious person behind the account? But another question kept bothering him even more. How had this person known that he would reach 1,000 subscribers? When Musaeva finally arrived at the address, he found an old building at the end of a quiet street. There was no sign, no business name, no reason for anyone to be there. He knocked on the door. Once, twice, nothing. Then he noticed a small envelope lying on the ground. His name was written on it. Musaeva slowly picked it up. Inside was a single photograph. The photograph showed a man sitting in a dark room. The man's face was hidden. But on the wall behind him, Musaeva saw something familiar, a small picture. It was the thumbnail from Musaeva's very first YouTube video. His heart began beating faster. Someone had been following his journey from the very beginning. But why? He turned the photograph over. On the back, someone had written, "You have been asking the wrong question." Underneath it was another sentence. "The question is not who watched your first video." Musaeva read the next line. "The question is, why did they need you to keep making videos?" For the first time, Musaeva felt something different. This was no longer just a celebration of 1,000 subscribers. Someone had been waiting for him to reach this moment. Someone had been watching. Someone had been counting. He opened the envelope again. There was one final piece of paper inside. It contained a date from 3 years earlier. Musaeva searched his memory. Then he remembered. That was the day he had almost given up. The day he had decided to delete his channel. The day he had uploaded what he believed would be his final video. But at the last moment, he had changed his mind. Why? Because one person had left a comment. Just 3 words. "Please keep going." Musaeva suddenly understood something. That comment had come from the same mysterious account. The account that had watched him from the beginning. The account that had predicted 1,000 subscribers. The account that had now brought him to this strange building. But there was still one question. Why had a complete stranger cared so much about whether Musaeva continued? Before Musaeva could think any further, the door behind him slowly opened. A voice came from inside. A voice he recognized immediately. It was the same voice from the mysterious video. "Come inside, Musaeva." He froze. The voice continued. "I have been waiting for you since the day you almost gave up." Musaeva slowly turned around, and standing in the doorway was an old man. But Musaeva had never seen him before. The old man smiled sadly. Then he said something that made Musaeva completely speechless. "I didn't help you reach 1,000 subscribers." Musaeva stared at him. The old man continued. "You did that yourself. Then why did you watch every video?" Musaeva asked. The old man looked down. Because one day, I needed someone to save me. Musaeva's expression changed. The old man slowly pointed toward a chair. Sit down. There is something you need to know. Musaeva sat. The old man took a deep breath. Then he said, "Your first video saved my life." Musaeva couldn't believe what he was hearing. How could a simple YouTube story have saved this man's life? What had happened to him? And why had he never told Musaeva before? The old man looked at him with tears in his eyes. Then he began telling the story that would finally explain everything. The old man sat quietly for a moment. Musaeva waited. He had traveled hundreds of miles for answers. But before we discover what the old man was about to reveal, if you've been following this story so far, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. You've already watched 3 parts, and the biggest truth is still waiting. By subscribing, you'll continue receiving emotional stories, unexpected mysteries, and powerful life lessons. We're on a journey toward 1,000 subscribers, and every single subscriber becomes part of this journey. Now, the old man finally looked at Musaeva. 3 years ago, he began, "I had lost everything." Musaeva slowly opened the first letter. The words inside were simple. "You don't know me, but your story helped me keep going." He opened another. "You don't know me, but I watched your video on the worst day of my life." Then another, and another. Every letter told a different story. But they all had one thing in common. Musaeva had never known these people existed. He had thought his videos were getting views. He had never realized that real people were watching them during the hardest moments of their lives. The old man quietly said, "Now you understand." Musaeva looked at him. "Understand what?" The old man smiled. "Your first 1,000 subscribers are not just a number. They are 1,000 different stories." Musaeva looked down at the letters. But then he noticed one final envelope at the bottom of the box. It had no name. Only one sentence was written on it. "Open this when you are ready to know the truth about your first video." Musaeva slowly reached for the envelope. And suddenly, he realized that the biggest mystery had never been the old man. It had been the first video itself. Musaeva slowly opened the final envelope. Inside was a single photograph. He looked at it, and suddenly, everything became clear. The photograph showed a young man sitting alone in a small room. On the wall behind him was a laptop, and on the screen was Musaeva's very first video. The old man looked at the photograph and quietly said, "That was my son." Musaeva stared at him. "Your son?" The old man nodded. "He was the first person who found your channel. He watched your first video. He told me about you. He said, 'Dad, this person is going to help people one day.'" Musaeva's eyes filled with tears. "But where is he now?" The old man looked down. "He's gone." For a moment, the room became completely silent. "Before he left this world," the old man continued, "he asked me to promise him something." "What?" "To keep watching your videos. And to make sure you never stopped." Musaeva couldn't hold back his tears. The mysterious first subscriber, the silent viewer, the person who had watched every video, was not watching for himself. He was keeping a promise. The old man slowly smiled. "That's why I wanted you to reach 1,000 subscribers. Not because 1,000 is the end, but because I wanted you to know that your journey mattered long before the numbers became big." Musaeva looked at the hundreds of letters around him. For years, he had believed that nobody was listening. But he had been wrong. Someone had always been listening. Sometimes, the smallest video can reach the biggest heart. Sometimes, one person watching quietly can give meaning to everything you create. And sometimes, you may never know how many lives your words have touched. Musaeva left the old man's house that evening with something more valuable than 1,000 subscribers. He left with a truth. You don't need millions of people to make a difference. Sometimes, you only need one person. And if one person can be helped by your story, then your story was worth telling. So if you've been watching this journey, thank you for being here. Every view matters, every comment matters, and every subscriber becomes part of the story. If you enjoyed this emotional journey, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more stories filled with mystery, emotion, and powerful life lessons. Because this is not the end. This is only the beginning. And maybe, the next story will be the one that changes your life.